Hey everybody, it's Paul from Unpacking Magic, and today we're going to take a look at the Commander 2017 deck, Draconic Domination. We're going to review the deck list, and we're going to talk about the top 10 budget upgrades for this deck. In addition, we're going to be giving this deck away during our 100 subscriber celebration. So go ahead and remember to comment, like, and subscribe to help us get to those 100 subscribers. Alright, let's get to unpacking. Before we get started with the review, I wanted to let you know a little bit about my history with Commander. I started playing Commander back in 2006 when it was still known as Elder Dragon Highlander. Back then I was judging a lot of larger Magic events, and one evening after a pro tour I was introduced to the game by Sheldon Menery and many other judges. Since then, it's been one of my favorite formats, and I've been fascinated by the group dynamics of each game. Over the past 7 or so years, I've always enjoyed exploring the pre-constructed Commander decks. And the best way to do that is to just jump right in and start discussing what's in the deck. So let's start unpacking Draconic Domination. To begin with, the Draconic Domination deck is a 5-color deck featuring, as you might have guessed, dragons, and led by its commander, the Ur-Dragon. As you can see, the Ur-Dragon is a monstrous 10/10 that costs 4 colorless and 1 of each color of mana to play. It also has an Eminence ability that allows it to reduce the casting cost of any dragon you play by 1 colorless mana, as long as it's in the command zone. Did I mention that after you get him into play and attack with some dragons, then you can draw cards equal to the number of dragons that attacked, and then put a permanent from your hand into play? Absolutely nuts. As the back of the Draconic Domination packaging says, "As time began, the Ur-Dragon began with it. As the primordial ancestor and lifeblood of all dragons, the Ur-Dragon imbues strength into dragons from every corner of the multiverse, so that they may rain endless fire and destruction upon the enemies of the dragonkind." Oh, sorry, I got a little carried away there. I feel like this deck is going to appeal to any player that loves playing with huge creatures, dealing a ton of damage, and making their opponents run away in terror. This deck features 32 creatures, and I'm going to tell you about a few that I think are amazing. O-Kagachi, Vengeful is a 6/6 with flying and trample for 1 colorless and 1 of each color of mana. When it attacks, if the player you are attacking attacked you during their last turn, you can destroy a permanent that they control. This gives you absolutely crazy board control, and people are going to be too scared of attacking you lest they lose their best permanent to you during your next turn. Taigam, Ojutai Master, is a 3/4 for 2 colorless, a white, and a blue. When Taigam is in play, instants, sorceries, and dragon spells you control can't be countered. Wow. Talk about a slap in the face to any blue player at the table. But wait, it gets even better. Anytime you cast an instant or sorcery after you attack with him, your spell gains rebound. So you can cast it again for free during your next upkeep. Scourge of Outcasts is a 4/4 flyer for 2 colorless and 3 red mana. His main ability says that when it or another dragon comes into play, you can deal an amount of damage equal to the number of dragons you control to a creature or a player. So basically, anytime you cast a dragon, it now also helps you wipe out almost any creature that might be on the table. And if that wasn't enough, he also has fire breathing. Utvara Helkite is a 6/6 with flying for 6 colorless and 2 red mana. And his ability says that whenever a dragon you control attacks, create a 6/6 dragon token with flying. This ability is ridiculous. If you get him out with a few other dragons on the table, the game is going to be over very quickly. Either you are going to wreck everyone, or everyone is going to wreck you. Niv Mizzet, Draco Genius, is a 5/5 flyer for 2 colorless, 2 red, and 2 blue mana. He has 2 abilities. The first is, whenever he deals damage to a player, draw a card. And the second ability states that, for a red and a blue mana, Deal 1 damage to a creature or a player. This guy is a damage and card drawing machine, all on his own. What more could you ask for in a dragon? Moving on to the sorceries, most of them involve either destroying something or causing chaos in the game, such as with Fractured Identity. It costs 3 colors, a white and a blue, to exile a non-land permanent, and then each other player, other than the permanent's controller, puts a copy of that permanent into play. Talk about wreaking chaos. I'm not even sure what kind of a permanent you would target with this. You want to spend 5 mana to get rid of this permanent, but you also don't mind everyone else at the table having one? Maybe someone is so in control of the game with a really powerful permanent like Omniscience. This might be a way to turn the entire table against them. Crux of Fate. Costs 3 colors and 2 black mana. You can either destroy all dragon creatures or all non-dragon creatures. Of course, you're always going to choose that latter option. It's clearly amazing to wipe the board of everyone else's creatures, but what happens if someone is playing Mindslaver and you have this in your hand? Hopefully if that happens, the table doesn't get flipped over. Well, not that I've ever done that. Moving on to enchantments, most in this deck either draw cards or help your dragons deal more damage, such as with Dragon Tempest. For 1 colorless and a red mana, all of your dragons gain haste, and when a dragon enters play, they deal damage equal to the number of dragons in play to a creature or player. Wow. The amount of extra damage you're going to be dealing from the haste ability alone is worth the 2 mana cost, and the extra come into play damage pushes this card over the top. I think R&D forgot to add 2 extra colorless mana to this card's casting cost. Let's take a look at the artifacts now. Most of them help you cast your dragons faster, but there's one card that does a little more. Herald's Horn costs 3 colorless mana, and it reduces the cost of a chosen creature type by 1. It also lets you draw an additional card during your upkeep if that card is of the chosen creature type. With over 30 dragons in your deck, you're going to be drawing a lot of extra cards. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lands now. And to be honest, the lands in this deck are very lacking, and there are almost no notable lands worth talking positively about outside of Haven of the Spirit Dragon, which lets you either add 1 colorless mana, 1 mana of any color to cast a dragon, or you can pay 2 colorless and sacrifice it to return a dragon card from your graveyard to your hand. This is one of the only lands in the deck that can produce more than 1 color of mana and doesn't have a significant drawback like coming into play tapped. This deck has many positives, like playing with a ton of freaking great dragons, a good number of board control spells, and some interesting cards that can cause chaos amongst the playgroup. Overall, once you have enough mana to start casting your dragons, this deck is a blast to play. The biggest negative of this deck is its very slow mana base. Nearly half of the lands come into play tapped, and this hampers the speed of the deck greatly. Even the mana acceleration and spells that reduce the cost of dragons don't make up for this slowness. Furthermore, the high average cost of dragons magnify this issue to an even greater extent. I'll let you know how I would address this issue later in the video. Let's go ahead and talk about the financial value of this deck for a moment. Currently, if you were to sell every card that was worth more than $1, you would be able to get $78, and that would be a $43 profit if you bought it at the MSRP of $35. So if you were wondering why it was so hard to find this deck, now you know one of the reasons why. I'd just like to remind everyone that not only are these decks available at your LGS and hobby shops that sell Magic product, but also big box retailers like Walmart and Target. So for example, about a week after the release of Commander 2017, I went into my local Target and found an entire set of Commander 2017 in there. And then over the next few days, I found even more sets at other Targets and Walmarts in the area. And so a lot of players don't realize that these big box retailers can be a viable option for finding decks that are hard to find. Let's go ahead and get into my top 10 budget suggestions for upgrading the deck. Now I do have some stipulations. No cards above $20, no fetch lands like Polluted Delta or Windswept Heath, no shock lands like Stomping Ground or Watery Grave, because honestly, these upgrades are just too obvious, boring, and also many are close to or above the $20 price limit. As a note, all of the prices I'm using are from TCG Player. Now, as we mentioned previously, the biggest issue with this deck is its extremely slow mana base. with nearly half of the lands coming into play tapped. We could easily swap 15 or 20 lands in this deck, but instead we're going to dedicate spot number 10 to 4 lands that will start to smooth out our mana base. City of Brass for $4.84, Mana Confluence for $6.24, Forbidden Orchard for $4.94, and Exotic Orchard for 30 cents. These cards are all relatively cheap, smooth our 5-color mana needs, and speed the deck up by not coming into play tapped. My number 9 pick is to replace Wayfarer's Bauble with Birds of Paradise for $4.50. Now, Wayfarer's Bauble is nice at getting us an extra basic land into play, but we're only going to get 1 color of mana out of that, while Birds of Paradise will get us any color of mana, and the mana is usable 1 turn earlier, and that's big when you're trying to cast high-cost dragons. At number 8, I would recommend replacing Darksteel Ingot with Mana Vault for $15.66. While Ingot is a reasonably good card, Vault will get us 3 mana up to 2 turns earlier and can help us power out one of our dragons as soon as turn 2. My number 7 pick is to replace Dreamstone Hedron with Felwar Stone for 33 cents. Dreamstone costs 6 mana, and in a deck that already has a ton of expensive dragons, that could become a problem. However, a Felwar Stone gives us a much cheaper way to accelerate our mana and possibly produce all 5 colors of mana depending on what our opponents are playing. At number 6, I would suggest replacing Nihil Spellbomb with Chromatic Lantern for $10. The Spellbomb gives us good utility, but as a 5-color deck, we really need Chromatic Lantern's ability to allow our lands to produce any color of mana, and it also provides mana acceleration. My number 5 pick is to replace Armillary Spare with Dragon Arch for $3.18. Now, Spare is decent at helping us get some extra lands and helps us when we are missing several colors, but Dragon Arch is just ridiculous. It lets us put any dragon into play every turn for just 2 mana each time. Absolutely nuts in any dragon deck. At number 4, I'd suggest replacing Curse of Bounty with Tamura Ascendancy for 25 cents. Ascendancy is another card that gives all of our dragons haste and allows us to refill our hand quickly with even more dragons. And honestly, Curse of Bounty is just not that good in this deck. It gives the other players at the table too much of a benefit. My number 3 pick is to replace Orator of Ujitai with Sarkam Unbroken for $10. In this deck, Orator just doesn't do enough. Sure, it might block a few points of damage early in the game, but when you start at 40 life, it's probably not going to make a difference. Sarkam, on the other hand, gives you access to any color of mana, draws you cards, puts 4/4 flying dragon tokens into play, and lets you tutor for your entire dragon army and put them directly into play. Wow. At number 2, I would suggest replacing Palace Siege with Lurking Predators for $1.99. While Siege is a versatile card, draining your opponents or returning dragons from your graveyard to your hand, Lurking Predators is just better. Anytime an opponent casts a spell, you have the opportunity to put a dragon from the top of your deck directly onto the battlefield. And Jace help your playgroup if you have a big clump of dragons on top of your deck. My number 1 pick is to replace Curse of Opulence with Elvish Piper for $5.45. Now, Curse of Opulence is another card that, while interesting, still gives everyone else at the table too much of an advantage. While Elvish Piper lets you cheat any creature in your hand into play, and that's big when you're playing dragons. The grand total cost for all of these upgrades is $74.55 on TCG Player at the time of the creation of this video. Well, that's about it. Let me know in the comments, have you guys ever played Commander? If so, do you own any of the pre-constructed Commander decks? Also, what do you think about my list of budget upgrade cards for the Draconic Domination deck? Okay everyone, please remember to comment, like, subscribe, and share this video on Facebook to help us grow the channel. And let me know if you enjoyed the format of this video and if you'd like to see me do more like this in the future. For all of us here at Unpacking Magic, I'm Paul. Keep unpacking, Planeswalkers.